What's an encounter with a celebrity you've had where they were an absolute dick? Vivica Fox. I used to be a bartender at a hotel, and she came in with a guy late one night after an event. He ordered a drink for himself and the house red for her, so I turned to her and asked if she preferred cab or merlot. She gave me the dirtiest look, like how dare I address her directly, and flounced off to a table without answering. He said, just give her red, whatever, and left a 0 tip. They ordered 4 rounds, no tip each time. They also complained that someone else came in and sat at a table near them and tried to get me to make them move. The other guests didn't even try to approach her or talk or anything. She was just mad that they dared to sit at a neighboring table. On the other end of the spectrum, Jay Leno came down one night to grab some dinner and a drink at the bar by himself. He was super polite, funny, and left me a $100 tip. Back in the 90s, I worked on the stage musical production of Beauty and the Beast. The guy who played the talking clock is an Australian celebrity by the name of Bert Newton. He always used to say hi and make conversation until he found out I was one of the lighting crew. After that, he wouldn't even glance at me. Slightly related. On the same show, I used to hang out with the dude that played Gaston at stage door having a ciggy during interval. I only recently discovered that it was Hugh Jackman. Really nice dude. Cuba Gooding Jr. cut in line ahead of me and my sister for a pretzel at Disneyland. We were 10 and 8 years old, respectively. I was a bookstore worker for a large chain in a popular city. We did a ton of author signings and talks. Authors are almost universally great. George Raymond Richard Martin was fantastic and really insightful to fans' questions. Stephen King is awesome and stays for everyone. Chuck Palahniuk is great and really hilarious. Toni Morrison stayed and talked in the coffee shop for hours. Margaret Atwood knows more about books and sci-fi than literally anyone I've ever met. However, the shit crown goes to Mitch Albom. He's a colossal dick to everyone. He openly berated the baristas and the cafe for his coffee's lack of quality. He was a prick to every employee. He sat in this super tight t-shirt and sat with his left arm behind his right to try and push out his biceps and look buffer, which is hilarious because he's maybe 5 feet 6 inches and 130 pounds. I'm not going to go as far and say he sexually harassed women, but he was slimy and gross to every woman in sight from ages 18 to 45. It was the worst signing ever. Plus, he acted like Tuesdays with Maury is wisdom, on level with the Dalai Lama. My boss actually had to ask him to leave immediately when his scheduled signing was over. His handler/agent was a very nice woman who was clearly sick of his shit. That poor lady. I went to a convention near my town. It was a sort of cartoon convention and gaming convention combo. On 10 separate occasions I was asked, "Do you know who I am?" Not a single one of them were people I knew. When I expressed this, they all had the same responses, but with different names. My name is Sprinkled Tim, or some equally ridiculous name, and I have over 50,000 subscribers on YouTube/Twitch. Apparently, there was a panel being held about how to grow your internet persona. It drew out some of the worst people ever. I wouldn't even call any of these people celebrities, but that was the image they had in their heads. This goes both ways. I ran into Kirstie Alley 25 years ago when Veronica's Closet was on. She was quiet but sweet. People came up and wanted photos, but she was with her kids and politely declined, citing her kids. Nearly everyone acted like she had slapped them and turned them down, but she was calm and gracious. Kind of made me sad. Jennifer Lopez. Anyone who has had to arrange for her visits or done military protocol for her United Service Organization tours or whatever knows how off the walls, batshit crazy she is. She came to visit Ramstein a long time ago, and the general's quarters, the nicest place on a very nice base, weren't good enough for her because everything has to be white. Every single thing. So we frantically found her a hotel room in Frankfurt, 90 miles away, which was as all white as could be found, and had the pleasure of driving her to and from multiple times a day while she nagged about making other cars on the Autobahn slow down, why her hotel was so far, why she couldn't get her favorite American drinks at a rest stop, etc. She expected Pope and presidential level treatment. She is absolutely horrible, so her attitude matches her music. I was fortunate enough to be involved in a number of films shot in South Africa. I got to meet and greet some well-known celebs, but a few stand out. I will list them in greatest cockwomble to minor cockwomble order. Steven Seagal, absolute bell end, was looking for hookers while married, coked out of his head while on set, just a general douche canoe. Kiefer Sutherland. Mamma mia, this guy thought that every time the sun came up, it was because he had his pants down to take a shit. Decent enough to the people who directed and mattered to him, everyone else was treated like dirt. Bob Hoskins. Just generally a bit of a prick. Lost his shit at people for the littlest things. Ronna Mitra was pretty nice though. friendly and congenial, and just so very pretty in real life. Leonardo DiCaprio was actually much nicer than I would have expected, took his mom with him wherever he went, was very nice to crew and extras, and pretty much everyone. Great attitude too. Ran into Pierce Brosnan while on vacation in Hawaii before Daniel Craig took the role of James Bond. He was in a gift shop, and we bumped into each other. Out of surprise, I pulled out my finger gun and shot him in classic Bond fashion, right in the gut. He staggered back and held his stomach, slowly dying in this gift store in front of me. As a 12-year-old, it was the coolest thing ever. I was sitting in the lounge in one of the big music studios in Hollywood, and Bruno Mars walks up, looks at me and says, "Where the f*** is my cab?" I looked at him and said, "Who the f*** are you?" I really had no idea who he was, but dude did act like an absolute dick. Nicest guy ever, Billy Ray Cyrus. The studio had a policy that you're never supposed to touch the food any of the artists order or bring in, and you're especially not supposed to take any home. As I was leaving, he slipped me 2 huge meat and cheese trays out the door when no one was looking. As an intern trying to make it as an audio engineer, that sustained me for almost 2 weeks. Probably 10 or 11 years ago, I was working behind the scene of a World Wrestling Entertainment house show. My job was to find the contest winners and bring them to introduce them to a couple of the bigger stars. My immediate report went to Ricky Steamboat, who was incredible. I had a question for him. Don't remember what it was anymore, but he was standing there talking to Chris Jericho, not wanting to be rude. I stood to the side, waiting for their conversation to end. Before I interrupted, Jericho stopped mid-sentence, looked at me and said, "Are you f***ing lost?" When Ricky turned around to see who Jericho was talking to, he recognized me and was super pleasant and answered my question. But Jericho was pissed and thought I was a groupie or something. Used to work at a Hard Rock hotel. Mariah Carey was the absolute definition of a king diva. She used a bunch of employee passageways, and we were instructed that if we looked her in the eyes, we would get written up. We were also told that we had to immediately vacate any room that she entered, even if we were in the cafeteria, on break, or in the bathroom doing our business. She's an asshole on top of that too. A few of her backup dancers accused her of sexual assault during #MeToo, and nothing ever came of it. Met Naomi and Winona Judd at a meet and greet session at Kmart corporate headquarters. I had a Kmart store plan from their hometown for them to autograph. Winona was a complete uber bitch. She scribbled her name on it and then crunched up the paper and threw it at me with some sarcastic comment about rednecks and hillbillies. Then her mom, Naomi, took the paper, gently smoothed it out, and told me that it was the most thoughtful thing she had autographed all day. Very nice and genuine woman. How are those two blood related? The Sandman at Extreme Championship Wrestling in the late 90s. He threw his beer can way before Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I ended up catching one. After the show, he was signing autographs, and I caught up with him. I said, "I caught your can. Could you sign it?" He looked at me dead in the eyes and said, "I'm not signing your King Ken kid," and walked away. I saw Pete Rose at the airport on Thursday. He saw my Braves gear I was wearing and said, "Braves are getting beat, buddy." I asked for picture, and he just replied the score, 6-0. Reversal story. Once worked for a large movie company I was pissed off, and at the end of my workday, so when I saw an open elevator not crowded with folk as I was leaving, I quickly got in and pressed my floor number when I heard a thick voice behind me, sounding a bit far away, saying, "Hold the door." I pretended not to hear given shit mood. Doors are closing and I turn. That's when Schwarzenegger's pissed off face appears behind the slit between the ever-closing doors. I ask you to hold the door. Then, they shut in his face, and the elevator went down. I'm in the wrong thread, but I have a good guy Mick Jagger story. My dad was a limo driver and often chauffeured celebrity clients. One day, he got Mick. The limo got mobbed by screaming fans. They were on all sides, pounding on the glass, climbing on the hood. My dad had never dealt with anything like that and started to panic. Mick reached over the seat from the back, patted my dad on the shoulder, and said, "It's all right, mate. Just slowly take your foot off the brake. They'll clear off." Mick Jagger soothed my dad through a panic attack. A drunken Robbie Nevil tried to start a fight with some friends, and I at a gas station because he claimed we cut him off. He was belligerent, swearing up a storm, and not entirely coherent. He also punched the gas pump we were at because that's just how upset he was. Our reaction was 80% what the fucking 20% go home. You're drunk. And eventually, he just went from screaming at us to screaming at us from his car. This was a little after his dad had died. I met Woody Harrelson at health food store. I didn't realize it was him. We're talking in line. At first I thought he was being an asshole, but it turns out he's actually a really cool guy. Don King. I didn't recognize who he was and asked for his identity so that I could check him into the hotel. When I looked up from the computer screen, the look he was giving me made me turn completely cold. I genuinely thought we were seconds from this guy. reaching out and grabbing me to hurt me for daring to not recognize him. I am not a big person and he is a very tall man. Fortunately, a co-worker who did recognize him intervened and took over the transaction, giving him what he felt was the proper amount of ass kissing. After that point, as far as he was concerned, I no longer existed. Super rude, but the anger and malice in his expression when I hadn't recognized him just left me grateful to have him turn his attention away. I think he did say something along the lines of, "Don't you know who I am?" But I honestly don't remember it. I just remember the look on his face. I've dealt D-list celebrities and plenty of sports stars who pull the "don't you know who I am" card all the time, and I'm generally just amused by it. This was something else altogether. He creeped me the f*** out. My uncle works at a Vegas casino. None of the Kardashians or Jenners tip anyone, ever. He was with them for over 3 hours and didn't receive a dime and was treated like total garbage. Scott Disick, however, is a great tipper and great guy all around. Oprah didn't tip me on a $200 lunch. Instead, she signed a napkin for me and acted like she was doing me a huge favor. The kicker was when she walked in. They gave away all of my other tables, so she didn't have to wait for anything. So I made $4 per hour for 2 hours for the privilege of serving Oprah, and she goes on and on about signing a napkin for me that I never asked for. My sister was at an away wrestling match in SoCal when a guy by himself sat next to her and hardly said a thing the whole time except cheer for his son. After a while, he asked her who she was there to see, and she said, without looking at him, that she was there to watch her boyfriend. And as she was going to ask who his son was, she looked at him and saw that it was Nicolas Cage in a ball cap. She was stunned and couldn't talk, and he smiled and basically read her mind, then pointed out his son with a proud dad smile. She got very nervous, so he asked her if she wanted to take a picture with him, to which she said yes. Not sure if Nicolas Cage is a bad person or anything, but this encounter made him seem so regular and grounded, being at a public school to proudly watch his son wrestle. I don't understand how she didn't recognize his voice. I used to be a driver and an assistant for Anders A.J. Sapkowski, the author of the Witcher series, during a Comic-Con at which he was a guest speaker. The guy is exactly as dickish as described and complains constantly just about everything. Favorite from him was when he rejected the coffee I brought to him because it was in a blue cup. Apparently, coffee only tastes good in brown or white cups. He also confused me at first for Nurgle of Behemoth, who was a speaker at the same con. Bizarrely, it happened again in my life. By the way, I look nothing like Nurgle, more like Tom Hanks with a ponytail. I work at a casino and I see quite a few celebrities. Firstly, Kevin James treated just about every employee like they were wasting his time. Just get it done. Jennifer Lopez was banned from one of the casinos I worked, and Mariah and Jennifer Lopez were both banned from the other. Jennifer Lopez famously told upper management she didn't want poor people looking her in the eyes and wanted any staff that went near her to look down. She also demanded a new mattress in our villa, custom-made bed by the way, at 3 a.m. Then tried to get the casino to essentially break into a mattress store. She had an aide Google for the mattress she wanted them to buy. Mid-90s. Worked at a golf course that was so exclusive not even Michael Jordan could be a member. The day was very rainy and the course was closed to everyone except the foursome Jordan was in. He ran late. The other three started without him. He arrived. They loaded his clubs on the cart. I was standing probably 50 feet away as he was getting ready to leave and meet his group. No one else around. There was nothing for me to do since no one else was on the course or the driving range. I'm not gawking or anything, just kind of marveling at how tall he is. They don't look so tall on TV. He calls me over. "How can I help you, Mr. Jordan? Can I have that towel?" "Of course, sir. Thanks. I knew you were good for something." Worked in a cinema that hosted premieres, so always dealt with the celebrities during premieres and red carpet events. You really get to know who the dicks are based on how they interact with you. Jennifer Lawrence was by far the worst celebrity I ever encountered. She showed up an hour late because she decided to visit a friend beforehand, so it delayed all of us. Then complained about people shouting at her while she was walking the carpet. And then she snapped her high heel while walking down the stairs, and for some reason, that was also our fault. Nothing but hostility from that woman. On the other hand, Tom Hanks was the nicest. Not me, a friend of mine. He worked on Looper in New Orleans. It was a very common occurrence where Bruce Willis would wander off of set, a call would come over the walkie, and various personal assistants would be sent to scour the area to find him. My buddy found him in a bar, sheepishly approached him, and said, "I'm sorry to bother you, Mr. Willis, but they're calling for you on set." Bruce Willis looked up at him and then proceeded to just keep drinking. I think it was a gin and tonic. like he wasn't even there. My buddy had to walk outside, radio in that he had found him, and wait for someone with a higher pay grade to come and wrangle him back to set. Edit. I just remembered I have one from set as well. My first movie gig while I was still in college was crafty PA on Skeleton Key. The rap party was at a bar I went to pretty regularly. The DJ spun awesome soul music. It was just good time. My roommate who got me the job and I showed up to the rap party as soon as it started. We were broke college kids and it was an open bar. We grab a table, load it with tequila shots, then our department head shows up and we proceed to get really hammered and have a good time. About an hour and a half into the party, we get approached by bar security. Apparently, Kate Hudson had arrived to the party and she wanted the table 6 of us are sitting at. We protested a bit, but were then told we could get up and stay at our own rap party or be thrown out of the place. We choose to just leave our own rap party because it was such a shitty situation. William Shatner paid for a meet and greet. I fumble for my ticket/token to give to the security guy. It literally took 3 seconds of fumbling. He then yells, "Hurry up, will you?" He clearly did not want to be there, took a photo, and shoved me aside. Best celebrity was Ron Perlman, was on the same day. A girl in a wheelchair was in front of me. He gets down onto her level and asks her if she is enjoying herself and really put up the vibe like he gave a shit. He came up to me and firmly shook my hand with a big smile and gave me a one-armed hug and said thanks for coming by. The dude is a saint. Unfortunately, I only have accounts of celebrities who I or someone I know was a dick to them. When I was about 5 years old, my dad took my brother and I to the Seattle Science Center. A fellow by the name of Kevin Bacon happened to be in line with his wife and kid. My dad attempted to low-key point out to us that it was Kevin Bacon, but subtlety is not his strong suit, so everyone else in the vicinity started to notice. Kevin tried to stay incognito, but too many people were aware of his presence at that point, so he left. Thanks, Dad. Second time, I was on a flight to San Francisco, and Art Alexakis was on the flight. Twitter was kind of new at this point, so I tweeted something along the lines of, "Oh hey, Art Alexakis is gonna be on my flight. Too bad I've never been a fan." When we landed, I checked my Twitter and noticed a new follower notification from Art Alexakis. Not me, but my dad. He's a cameraman and he worked with Russell Crowe on a shoot, said he was the biggest jerk to crew and acted a bit like a diva. Mind you, this was easily 15-ish years ago, so I don't know about him now. I met Jeffrey Rush when I was working reception at a small hotel when he was filming The Daughter. I lent him my umbrella and recommended a cafe in town, rather than catch the bus right outside. He decided to walk the 45 minutes into town. He came back and blew me a kiss as I returned my umbrella and said he liked the cafe. Reminded me of my late grandfather. He can rock a pink business shirt. Not my story, but my brother told me this happened to his friend in high school. She went to go see John Mayer live, and she was super hyped because she'd opted for the VIP tickets that let you meet him after the concert. After the concert, and waiting for the time to meet him, John Mayer came out of his room, only to say, "If you're not going to sleep with me, you may as well just go." Real classy fellow. That John Mayer was an extra in a comedy sketch with David Walliams and Jack Whitehall. Jack's great, but David. They were playing these stuck-up tennis personalities, and I, aged 19, was David's ball girl. During one take, he clicked his fingers and beckons me to bring his towel to him. I do so, quickly, as instructed. He wipes his brow and pretty aggressively thrusts the towel back to me. I was unprepared and dropped the thing. He tuts and we cut. Try to do the scene again. Same happens, he clicks. I run over, but this time he wipes his sweaty ass in tight shorts, as well as his forehead, and then throws the towel back to me. Higher this time, so it splattered right over my head. I got David Walliams' butt sweat on my face. He never came over to apologize. Never said a single word to any of us extras despite there being very few of us. Honestly, the rudest experience I've had with a celebrity in 5 years of film/TV work. Alec Baldwin. Oh, how I now despise that man. Back in 2002, I was at an event for work, and he was a special guest. He appeared to be somewhat intoxicated, and as he walked past me, he plowed into me, spilling my entire drink down the front of my outfit. Never said excuse me or I'm sorry or anything. Just was a total dodgebag, and to this day, I will not watch anything if I know he'll be in it. So yeah, I still hold a grudge. I've worked on the sets of major films and television shows for the past 4 years. I would like to share a different perspective, if I may. When a show/film has a cast with a fan base, those fans show up to on location filming. On some shows that have well-known reoccurring locations, there are often many fans that will show up to set. The locations team does their best to corral them into a single location that is out of camera but close enough that they don't try to sneak around and become security risks. Many times, the cast members will take the time to come over to the group of fans and take pictures, shake hands, and sign autographs. I'll begin with the things that people say. There's always a few birthdays in the crowd, because it's my birthday demands attention. There's always someone who traveled from a different country just to be there. A bunch of people bring fan art and random gifts. Sometimes someone missed a cancer treatment or a funeral or any other number of things that are an attempt to garner sympathy. Now, I may sound cold, but who are any of those people to put that kind of baggage on a stranger, and all at once, no less? Having stood there and listened to the fans bark out their ailments and woes in an attempt to have the ear of their crush, it's a pathetic sight, and it must weigh on those actors. When Justin Bieber announced that he was no longer doing meet and greets with fans while touring, I agreed with the little shit. Now, the things that people do, remember a couple years ago, there was a news story out of Argentina about the baby dolphins being killed by tourists who had captured them and then passed them around to take selfies. That's what comes to mind when I see our cast with a giant group of fans. They've got security and still they've been surrounded. People get grabby, they push forward. People are determined to get their damn selfie. People feel some misplaced sense of entitlement, and the actor has to keep a straight face, because mixed in with the press of fans are paps waiting to snap a nasty moment. There are reasons people want to be left alone, and actors are people at the end of the day.